Well, I completely agree with everything you said, and I will just leave it at that. So we know we share the same worldview on some basis. But I'm going to come back to my question, and I'm going to read this again to you. You said it's gotten worse. This is what you said. Even educated believers seem now to lack the words with which to express a principled defense of American freedom, religion, and exceptionalism. Okay, if that's true, doesn't America and the West need a new narrative and new vocabulary to connect us to, I would say, to Judeo-Christianity?
Or we need a resurrection of the old vocabulary.
Of the old vocabulary.
Right, which is,
okay.
This is the John Courtney Murray project, as it was often put. John Courtney Murray was a Catholic writer back in the late 50s. He was an advisor to Kennedy, the Catholic advisor to Kennedy. He was on the cover of Time magazine. And he's got, a way in which you can be Catholic and American. He was looking for that at the time. And it had a lot of influence on people that you had met and talked to. Michael Novak, George Weigel, Richard John Newhouse. That he had a lot of impact on those people who came of age as Catholics at a certain time in America. And that's great. But what I want to think about here when you ask that is, what's the consequence of our not having that, right? If you're an ordinary person and you walk down the street and you sort of believe in American exceptionalism because it's in the air and it's been in the air since, Winthrop called it a city on a hill. If you've got that, can you actually defend it? Do you have any sense of what it actually means? And this is what I meant by sort of educated believers no longer having the vocabulary to support these, what Alistair McIntyre would have called taboos, which are moral propositions that we've forgotten the reason we used to hold them for. And then if anybody blows on them, they fall down. Right. The great example would be, he's using this out of the Polynesian history of the taboo, but we used to be able to explain why we thought public nudity was wrong, right? And then after that reasoning went away, the proposition public nudity is wrong survived for a long time until Hugh Hefner comes along in 1955 and says, prove it. He challenges us to prove it, and we find that we cannot. Yeah. These lines that we don't have the vocabulary anymore for it. This was an argument. Let me tie this to something else. This is essentially a point I made in something I got very beaten up for, which was when I did a big cover story for Commonweal magazine, in which I said the church should probably get out of the same-sex marriage fight because they're going to lose it. And then they're going to lose it because Americans no longer have a vocabulary in which they could explain what was wrong with same-sex marriage. They don't have a metaphysical vocabulary, and all that only leaves the one vocabulary they have left, which is the language of legal equity. And that's, if legal equity is all you have, you can't explain what the difference between men and women is. You can't explain what the purpose of marriage is. You've lost all of that reasoning. Then legal equity becomes your only reasoning. And what does that say? Well, why should those two people be deprived of this? I didn't say it was right. What I said is the country lacks the shared vocabulary to explain to itself why that's wrong. And consequently, this fight is lost completely. And to invest in fighting it is going to just waste money and time and prestige and reputation. And I said the church should just, and Catholic scholars should just say, that's a lost fight. We're not going to win.
Well, I completely agree with you on that one too. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that's so exciting about the times we're in is it is time for a whole new vocabulary, comprehensive vocabulary.
Oh, exactly. And think how much it's escalated since same-sex marriage.
Yeah. All right.
Where we now have people who say they can't tell the difference between men and women. I mean, Andrew Sullivan and my old friends who liked the same-sex marriage and invented it out of whole cloth. I mean, it was just purely an invention that they never thought was going to go anywhere. Right. And then they ended up winning it. they at least understood that same-sex attraction required that there be a difference between the sexes.
Yes.
And now that vocabulary is so far gone
Well,
that our inability to have a metaphysics that would let you say why same-sex marriage is not marriage now has reached the point where we can't even defend the proposition that men shouldn't compete in women's sports.
Since the early 1800s, and maybe you can go back to about 1750, what would be called the far left today, then and through now, to the extent there's continuity, they got very good at language. They got very good at inventing new ways of thinking and new language.
Well, it's also a dissolution of language, but
well, but yes, but that's part of the game as well.
Yeah.
And so I love and appreciate and know very well the wonderful meaning of the word being conservative, but I really don't like the label, and I think it's actually, I think what I believe in explodes the power of the ages. So to say it's, some sense holding people down, I know that's not what it means, but it's confusing. They've warped it, and we need new ways of talking about this.